Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon or evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I am coming to you from not so sunny California today. Welcome to today's webinar, all about modernizing your PIMS and how it can help you boost productivity, profitability, and ultimately elevate patient care, the outcome that we all care about. We're going to get started on time here. I want to be respectful of everyone's busy schedules today and really appreciate you all joining us. I know it's December, you're probably juggling year-end wrap-up, holiday scheduling, maybe some team members already starting their vacation, so thank you. A couple quick admin points before we dive in. This webinar is being recorded and we'll send you that recording afterward. So if you need to step away or want to review something later, you'll have access to it, so you don't need to be taking furious notes. Throughout the session, we'll be collecting questions in the Q&A box. We've got dedicated time for those questions later, but we're monitoring throughout, so please ask whenever something comes to mind and we'll get to as many of those as we can. I am Jillian Clues, the VP of Product Management at Instinct. My job is really to make sure that we're building technology that solves real problems for practices like yours. And I'll be speaking to you a little bit today about what we're seeing in the market and Instinct and its foundations. Today, you're also going to hear from Alex Schechter, a founding veterinarian at Burrwood Vet, as well as from Jane Lennon from the Instinct team, one of our senior adoption specialists who works with practices every day to implement Instinct. And here's a peek at what we'll cover. I'm going to talk a little about the reality that practices are facing today, Instinct and our origin story, why we built it the way that we did. And then you'll hear from Alex about his real experience building up a practice and using Instinct. And Jane will walk us through a demo of Instinct for primary care. And at the end, we'll wrap up with some of those questions. If you're running a practice right now, you know that you're managing more complexity than ever and doing it with fewer resources and higher expectations from your clients. And that combination can be exhausting. Here's some of what we're seeing across the industry, what we're hearing from customers. And I'm guessing some of this will sound familiar. First is staffing is harder than ever. 78% of practices are feeling challenged here, and 40% of staff have been at their current practice for under 2 years. That high turnover means that you're constantly in training mode on top of being understaffed. Your experienced techs might be doing the work of 2 people, especially this time of year when someone's inevitably out. And there's no time for learning legacy clunky systems amidst that busyness. At the same time, your clients are more price sensitive than ever. We're seeing visits down year over year across the industry, and more pet owners even opting to forgo care because of the costs. Client loyalty is just not a given anymore. You have to earn it every single visit, and customer expectations continue to climb to provide tools for your clients to access information, book appointments at their convenience. And not to mention they're shopping around, they're reading reviews, comparing you to the practice down the street, and sometimes just opting to do nothing because those costs are too high. And one of the parts that really gets me is while you're working harder than ever to keep your staff happy, retain your clients, money is just still slipping through the cracks. Practices are missing up to 5 to 10% of charges. For a practice that's doing $2 million in revenue annually, that could be $100,000 to $200,000, might be multiple headcount. And your workflow is just not capturing everything. Someone forgets to add a charge, doctor moves on to the next patient, the tech assumes someone else got it, and all those little misses really add up. You're also seeing cases that 5 years ago would have been referred to specialists. Referral wait times are really long, and clients are expecting you to handle complex diagnostics, chronic disease management, and post-surgical follow-up. So the reality is you're trying to deliver more advanced medicine with a really lean team that keeps changing in an increasingly competitive market without leaving money on the table. And your systems should be making that easier, not harder. I want to take a quick pulse from the group. You should see a poll pop up on the screen for you. We want to know what challenges are the toughest for you right now. Take 30 seconds or so and let you answer and kind of see what the group is feeling most. Is it missed revenue, staffing challenges, client price sensitivity, increased competition, or maybe it's something else? And feel free, if there's something else, to drop it in the Q&A if you have other thoughts. Okay, we're gonna let those responses roll in for a second here. Okay, we've got a balanced mix. I'm not surprised by that. Staffing and high turnover, client affordability, rising operational costs. Those are a lot of things that we're hearing from practices today. And part of the problem and why some practices are feeling those challenges so deeply is that most of the systems that are out there just weren't built for this current reality that we're facing. Legacy PIMS were built 10, 15, even 20 years ago. And the world was just different then. Staffing was more stable, general practice was more straightforward, and you could compete on location and reputation. These systems were built to really manage transactions, schedule an appointment, write an invoice, collect the payment. That was the priority. And then they started bolting on clinical tools, leaving you with just a disjointed experience. And all that means in your day-to-day that you're clicking through 5 different screens for a task that should be simple. Clinical notes are over here, billing's over there, and you're pulling reports from 3 different places and joining them manually in a spreadsheet just to figure out what's happening in your practice. I'm sure many of you are thinking of specific examples right now that grind your gears every day. If you need to look up a drug interaction, you're leaving your workflow, opening another window, searching, and then trying to remember where you were when you navigate back. And training new staff can take weeks, not because they're not capable, but because nothing follows your clinical logic. They have to memorize where things are instead of just following how they think about medicine. And charges are falling through the cracks because documenting what you did and billing for it are separate steps. These systems are basically asking you to adapt to them instead of adapting to how you actually practice. Now, talking about instinct and who we are and why we're talking to you today about general practice. If you are managing a general practice, you probably haven't come across instinct before, at least not as a PIMS company, because our foundation was really built in the emergency and specialty spaces. Instinct was founded by a vet himself, Dr. Caleb Frankel, who worked in ER. He saw these problems firsthand while working in emergency medicine and grew frustrated enough to really try to do something about it. And it all started with the treatment sheet, Instinct treatment plan. Caleb was really done with paper, missed charges, and the extra burden on his team, people working way after hours just to get their documentation done and things still slipping through the cracks. And he had a vision for a better future. What if we could build something where nothing gets missed, where there's no more paper chaos, a lofty goal, and where people that are taking care of animals can actually focus on that care. And as an outcome, hopefully those people would be happier and healthier themselves. So we started building Instinct with a team, starting in that complex, chaotic, fast-paced environment of emergency and specialty, where seconds matter and you can't afford mistakes. Now, you probably don't know us as a general practice platform, but you almost certainly know our other products. Plumbs and Standards and Clinicians Brief are actually Instinct too. We're the company behind those clinical decision support tools that hundreds of thousands of veterinarians rely on. And that's really not a coincidence. Clinical excellence isn't something that we tacked on later. It's literally where we started. It's our foundation and it remains our focus. We really want to make sure that we're caring for the caretaker and helping them provide excellent care. Looking at our evolution, we started with that Instinct treatment plan, launching it in 2017 and helping reduce missed charges and eliminate paper treatment sheets. And in 2021, we went full practice management with Instinct EMR, adding things like appointment scheduling, invoicing, payments, and reporting to build an end-to-end solution. And early last year, vet medics joined the Instinct team, bringing Plumbs and Clinicians Brief into our product family and putting that critical information right at the point of care in Instinct. And earlier this year, we launched standards of care, adding that to the mix and really expanding our trusted decision support tools. And finally, we're here on the brink of 2026 and introducing Instinct for primary care. And why are we doing that now? Really because general practice has fundamentally changed. All those challenges that we're talking about, you're not doing what general practice looked like 10 years ago. You're handling a lot of the complexity that we originally built for. And we actually started hearing from practices themselves, maybe veterinarians with ER backgrounds who were opening general practices, who wanted the same technology that ER and spec had access to, technology that thought the way that they did clinically. And that helped it click for us. What we built for specialty and ER isn't just for them anymore. It's really the reality of general practice now. Clinical decision support, workflow efficiency, automatic charge capture, those aren't luxury features for specialty hospitals. They're really necessities for anyone that's trying to deliver quality care with a changing team in a competitive market. So when we say that we started with clinical excellence as sort of our foundation, what we mean by that is, one, that the workflow thinks like a veterinary team, and later Jane will walk you through some of what we mean by that. But basically, you're not jumping between systems. Plumbs and standards aren't separate tools that you log into. They're right there, embedded at the moment that you need them, native to the platform. When you need to check a drug interaction or dosing, it's just there for you. We get a lot of comments from people who can tell that these tools are built by folks with real veterinary experience, and they were. We have dozens of people on the team who've held every role that you can imagine in a hospital, whose experiences have really helped shape all of these products. The second piece is that charge capture happens automatically because you document your clinical information, and that's the same as your billing workflow. You're not doing those things separately. You run a lab test, it's captured. You prescribe medication, it's on the invoice. And we've seen practices increase revenue over 10% when switching systems because of that automatic approach. And third is new team members can learn this quickly. When software follows your clinical logic, the way that you were trained to think about medicine, you don't need weeks of training. It just makes sense. We really built this for the most demanding environments in veterinary medicine, and now general practice is one of those. So that's a little peek at our history, and that's probably enough talking from me. I want you to hear from someone who is actually living this day to day about his experience, not just with Instinct, but building a practice from the ground up and making the key decisions involved in that. So Alex Schechter is a founding vet at Burrwood Veterinary. Alex, will you share a little bit about your background?
Yeah, of course. So I am born and raised in Metro Detroit and went to Michigan State before moving out and practicing in New York for 7 years. I worked at a large emergency specialty clinic as an ER doctor for a few years before joining a de novo startup clinic in Manhattan with a corporate consolidator group. And then eventually decided I wanted to move back home to Metro Detroit. And in October of 2022, so just over 3 years now, opened up Burrwood Veterinary, which is a GP urgent care mixed practice.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. And you've really seen every side of the industry, which I think is really fantastic for this conversation. And a couple of things I want the audience to know here about Alex and his team. He was one of our first general practice customers at the time. We were really just known for ER and specialty, and we weren't on the radar for a GP. So Alex took a real chance for us, and he's been incredibly generous with his time and feedback, really helping shape the product. And I just have to plug Burrwood's social media. If you haven't seen it, you should check them out. They are doing really fun, creative stuff on there. So check out that Instagram handle.
Appreciate that.
We really love it.
Love that.
Some of you watching are probably established practices weighing whether to switch systems, thinking about change management, data migration, retraining. Others of you might be opening new locations or new practices. Alex built Burrwood from day one with Instinct, so his perspective is unique, but I think you'll get great insight from him, whichever journey you're on. So Alex, I'd love to hear first what inspired you to start your own practice, and what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I think that like just seeing all different aspects of veterinary medicine, I had a kind of a desire to build something different and new that may be a little bit more progressive and technology forward, with like a side note of elevating kind of client experience. And in doing that, I still wanted to I love emergency medicine and I love urgent care. And I didn't want to just be solely GP. And so I was kind of figuring out a way to mix them together in normal daytime hours. And that's kind of where the idea of Burrwood was built.
Awesome. And yeah, that mix of wellness and urgent care, it's not a typical model, although I think we're seeing it more and more. Any challenges that you've run into with running that kind of hybrid model?
I think it's a lot of it is like schedule management and kind of team mindset, because I do think a lot of GPs are already urgent cares in a way, because they're seeing these sick cases. They're just not promoting them that way. So a lot of it is just figuring out where that fits in kind of day-to-day operations.
Yeah, totally. It's the lines are kind of blurring. GP is not what it used to be, right?
For sure.
And what's the most like unexpected thing when you set out to open your own practice that you just didn't expect you would run into, or nobody warned you about?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, as much as you try to prepare, I don't think you can be, for how many balls you're kind of juggling at the same time. Like, you're no longer just being a doctor, you're HR, you're an accountant, you're a bookkeeper, you're IT. It's all mixed into one. And really, until you kind of get big enough to get systems in place, like, you're on 24/7. And so as much as people told me that going into it, I don't think you really know until you're in it.
Mm-hmm. And so you worked in a lot of different types of practices, ER, consolidated. How did that experience working in different practices shape how you decided to pick your software that you were going to use?
Yeah. So, and I did actually relief work for a year while the hospital was being built. So I got to see a ton of different clinics and different workflows. And I kind of became a little obsessed on like the client journey when they walk in the door, and then how the whole team flowed within the hospital during that visit. And I would see so many different ways when a client came in, like how that was portrayed to the back of house, whether it was like just paging every time someone was put into a room, to then like printing out, piece of paper travel sheets and putting it on the door, to a lot of clinics, people would still, like, the reception would walk back to like a physical whiteboard and take the time to write all that information on the actual board. And so I kind of like, I knew there had to be a solution. There has to be a better way of doing this. And ultimately that's how I wound up finding Instinct, because I think that was one of like the first features, was having kind of a digital whiteboard or status board that like kind of flows with the appointment when the patient's there. And so that initially is what drove me to kind of look into Instinct a little bit more. And then, from there, was kind of getting even more of a deep dive of all the features that you added and how that kind of streamlines things and makes things so much easier and quicker during an appointment.
Got it. So really like kind of obsessing about that client experience and the journey and continuity throughout the visit, it sounds like.
For sure.
And yeah, and I think your whole team's attention to detail shows. I love just the way your practice is set up and the client experience. That's awesome. When you were building Burrwood, how did you approach like evaluating different systems and how things would operate together?
Yeah, a lot of it, I think you have to just demo it and feel it and drive it, and you kind of get a sense of how you as an individual would like each software, because you're going to be on it, a majority of your day. So it has to feel right. It has to feel fluid. It has to feel functional, because the way hospitals are moving towards now, like, your practice software is like one of the most important decisions that you make because it needs to do so much more than it did 10, 15 years ago. And so a lot of it was just demoing everything. And a lot of it I was getting self demos because of all the different hospitals I was, working at, and kind of getting an understanding of, hey, something that takes 10 clicks to do might not seem like a big deal when you're demoing it 1 or 2 times, but when you're doing it 20 times a day, that adds up. And so finding a solution that was intuitive and streamlined and quick and not clicky was super important to me.
Mm-hmm. And what does the typical workflow for an appointment look like for you now, from kind of client check-in to when they leave? What's that journey like?
Yeah, so everything kind of runs through the status board, which is kind of like the heartbeat of the hospital, right on the main treatment area. And we have 2 next to each other for outpatients, and then inpatients, which are just, again, we're just a day practice. So it's just surgeries or day hospitalized pets. So someone checks in, and the front desk with a click of a button puts them, it goes to the status board, and it pops them up right on the treatment area. And then the technician, again, can assign them, which is, again, it's noted right there on the status board, goes in, gets the history, and then comes back and relays it to me. And then I'm going in. And then, of course, as she's telling me, I immediately forget, like, is it, a dog or cat, boy or girl? Mm-hmm. And I immediately look up and 4 times have to check quickly if it, the sex, which is, again, is up there. And then the patient alerts too, which is like, hey, caution, go slow, does better with owner in the room. So kind of gauge what I'm walking into. We go in and again, we do an exam, an estimate, assigned approval, all within the software, before it gets moved to the treatment sheet, which the patient gets brought to the back and everything gets done. And then we check them out in the room. We're a credit card only, but all within Instinct. So the owner never has to leave the room for the journey before checking out.
Very nice. And if some of those terms, treatment sheet and the status board, you don't know what those mean, we're going to walk through some of that in the demo. And I think we've also got a photo of what that looks like in Burrwood's practice that we'll share as well.
Sure.
Getting really practical for a minute, how do new team members learn the system when they join? What's that experience like?
That's really not that complicated. Kind of what you alluded to too. It's like pretty intuitive and like, if you're like, there should be a button here for this. It is there. It's very well thought out. We send them before starting some of the demo videos that you have kind of walking them through some stuff just to have some background. But really, by the time they come in for their working interview and spend a day playing around on the system, they kind of get enough of the hang of it where kind of they're ready to get started, day one.
That's awesome. That's what we like to hear. What would you say if you could pick one thing that has made the biggest difference in how your practice runs day to day? What would it be?
So I would, at least from a software standpoint, I guess I would say, besides the status board, which I think you're going to go into a little bit later, is for me, it's like, again, thinking about that journey and like seconds and minutes make a big deal when you're doing it over and over. And I used to have the Plumb app on my phone, which I remember when that came out 10 years ago, I was like, this is amazing. I don't have to flip through a book. Right. And figuring out like the mg per kg dose, I'd still have to calculate it, but I always double check dosages or look for adverse, reactions or interactions, whatever, I needed to. And having, it's all built in to the software where anytime I'm prescribing something, I could just type in, hey, the mg per kg dose, it tells me, I click a button and it gets put in. And if I do the wrong mg per kg dose, it says, hey, this is with safety margins. Like it tells me, hey, this is incorrect. This is above what is recommended. Using that, like, because we're prescribing so much every day, nonstop, over and over, again, I think that has made such a big difference to me and have saved me a ton of time.
That's a great one. It's hard to pick a favorite, but that's definitely a good choice.
Yeah.
And really the money question is, like, how would you advise another vet who is making technology decisions, whether they're starting their own practice anew or evaluating options to switch to?
I think a little bit what you alluded to too is like having the right mindset that like an EMR software, it doesn't need to do, it now needs to do so much more. 10 years ago, it only needed to do, A and B. Now it needs to do A through Z. And when you're demoing or looking into different softwares, having that mindset that like, this is probably going to be one of the most important pieces of your practice. You're on it nonstop. It runs your hospital. The more effective it is, the better integrations, the quicker the support when something's not working. Like, it will make your day-to-day so much smoother. Mm-hmm. And I think the other important thing is what I thought about too, is like, well, what will the software look like in 5 years and 10 years? And that's kind of where, again, I, joined before some of these features were even being, were built yet, but I knew, hey, if you've thought of these solutions for some of the bigger problems, I had no doubt that you were going to figure kind of some of the more standard, solutions that are in some of the, more generic or older ER softwares.
Yeah, I love that point. It's not just the software, it's also the company and the people that are building it. Yeah. Well, Alex, thank you so much. That was incredibly helpful. Love your perspective and appreciate your candor. We are gonna switch into demoing the product. You've heard some of a customer's experience. Now we can see what this actually looks like in practice from Jane.
Thanks so much, Jillian. And thank you, Alex, too. It's always so cool to hear the perspective from our clients. Now, we work with clients on the day-to-day, but actually hearing those insights goes so far and leads me into some of the tools that we're going to talk about. So in today's demo, I want to highlight some of the features that really hit some of the topics that Jillian mentioned today that you guys are experiencing in the general practice community. Starting with one of the features that I think is such a foundational piece for the general practice, and that is the appointment calendar. We need an appointment calendar that makes scheduling fast and intuitive for the front desk while still giving the clinical team clear visibility into the day. Now, what we're seeing here with the Instinct appointment calendar is a group calendar view. So I'm not only seeing my calendar, I'm also seeing my technician appointments for the day. If I had more providers, I could also see those listed here. Now, if I'm only working with one provider and I just want to see that individual view, I can view that right here by choosing from our drop-down list. I can also deselect any providers that maybe aren't working that day to minimize my view as much as possible. Now, we've also added a level of transparency to the appointment calendar that I think a lot of us are used to seeing on an appointment calendar, and that is some color coding. Now, with our appointment types here, these colors are differing types of appointments. So I can see that Spot here with this darker blue is in for a sick visit that is actually defaulted to 60 minutes. Whereas Freddie Mercury is here for an annual exam that is a lighter blue color and instead defaulted to 30 minutes. This helps me just look at the calendar and get a good idea of what is going on during my day. Now, we also think it's important, because you guys are so busy in the general practice community, to set up some real-time guardrails to prevent things like double booking or scheduling outside of availability. So if I were to click outside of my availability block, which this right here is an availability block showing that I'm available from 4 to 5, but if I click outside of there and I select my appointment type, we're going to use wellness for this example, it's actually going to warn my team that this is outside of my provider's availability. Now, if you talk to the doctor and they're okay with a little bit busier day, then you can bypass this, but it adds that extra layer to ensure that even though we're moving fast, we're making the right decisions. Now, another piece that I think is so important for the general practice is our time, and we need to reduce no-shows as much as we can. So Instinct includes built-in reminders that can be sent out via email or text, and clients can actually self-confirm their appointments. So the text message will say, "Would you like to confirm?" That writes back into Instinct. I can also view right now, this view is really great for anyone scheduling appointments, right? I can see what we have going on that day. I can also see what's available. But over here on the list view, this is really great for our providers that just want to see what appointments they have and what order those appointments are in. This view is customizable, so I could filter this by provider. So my technician appointment is at the top and my appointments are falling chronologically. Also graying out as appointment times pass, which I think is an important piece. What's nice about this view is I can also see the reason for visit, as well as any appointment notes that my team recorded for me so that I am educated going into each of my appointments. Now, the result here is a calendar that's flexible, efficient, and built for the pace of a busy general practice. Now, Alex talked a lot about one of these features, and that is the status board. This is such an important piece for the general practice, and I want you guys to think of this as the home base of instinct that acts kind of like a patient census. At the top here, you can see it's broken down by outpatient, inpatient, boarding, and on the way. And it's going to tell me all of the patients that I currently have checked into the hospital, where they're located with the ward or location of the patient, and what they have upcoming in terms of treatments. We have some color coding here, so any completed treatments are going to be in gray, any due treatments in yellow, and then good thing we don't have any overdue, but those would be in red. Now, Alex also mentioned, and I'm excited to show you what his looks like in his practice, that the status board can actually be displayed on vertical TVs so that when I'm going from one room to the next room, all I have to do is look up at the status board and know enough about my patient to go into the next room quickly, saving time overall. Now, this is a customizable view for anyone that is logged in. They can filter this by different doctors if you're only working with one doctor that day, the ward or the location of the patient within the hospital, and a certain service. If you're just doing dentals, you may not need to know what's going on in rooms, so you can filter this down to best suit your needs. The status board really brings clarity, coordination, and shared awareness across the hospital, helping teams to stay organized and keep the day moving smoothly. Now, the next thing I'm so excited to show you guys, because this is something that is a very recent release and so needed in the general practice community. So we're going to jump into Oliver's visit here, and we're going to head over to the chart screen. Now, the chart screen, this is where the magic happens. This is where we write our records. We can diagnose or put our diagnoses in here. We can view our current visit as well as past visits. But sometimes we need to just be able to see things like preventative care information without having to dig through past visits. That's why our team created the Preventative Care Hub, which brings a patient's preventative care into one clear, centralized view. Now, from this hub, I can see what's overdue, due soon, or what's been completed and is not going to be due for a little while. Additionally, I can see things broken down by all of my reminders or vaccinations and health and service. From this view, if I had a quick appointment coming in that is just here for a booster vaccine, I may not want to go to the treatment sheet, order that up, tell my technicians to do it, and then complete it. Instead, I can come to the three-dot menu right here and just complete a one-off of this item, and that will allow me to input my lot and serial number, expiration date, and generate that new rabies certificate on demand. Now, speaking of rabies certificates or any vaccine certificates, I can click the three-dot menu to access those at any time. However, sometimes owners aren't in the facility and they call us, and then we have to print that out and email it to them or have them come pick it up. Well, using our communication log send function, I can actually send an email to the owner and attach that rabies certificate, saving my team time and steps. Now, this is just the beginning. We're continuing to build on this foundation to make preventative care even more intelligent, proactive, and connected over time. Now, the next piece I want to talk about, I think, is so important because primary care can be so high volume in terms of outpatient workflows that we need tools that can support that. Now, Alex alluded to a couple of these, so I'm excited to hear that they work well for you also. But with our treatment sheet here, I could come in and I could order up, maybe Oliver is here for vomiting. I could come in and order up an individual dose of Serenia and maybe some fluids, or I can use one of our really great tools called product groups. Now, what product groups do is they act like a pick list so that I can run through the list here, and I can say, okay, I want a dose of Serenia maybe, and I want some radiographs. Now from here, we are moving quickly and we don't want to sacrifice our safety or accuracy for our patients. So we have some built-in tools. One of those tools is our medication calculator. So based off the weight of the patient and the concentration of the medication, Instinct will actually help you calculate out your dose. Now, if you're moving too fast and instead of clicking use calculated quantity, you just slam 7 mils in here, Instinct is actually going to warn you that, hey, this is outside of the safety range for your patient. Are you sure? Now, you could bypass that if you're given a dose that's extra label, but we usually want to use our appropriate doses. Now, additionally, instead of pulling up Plumbs on your phone or pulling out that old dusty book, we can actually access Plumbs directly from our medication. So you could open up the monograph here and view all of that information as needed. Now, I'm going to go ahead and order this up and show you guys one of the tools that Jillian spoke on, and that is charge capture. So as my team are completing these treatments, they're coming in here, they're doing the quick process of just hitting complete, letting us know that they have given that medication. Well, as they're completing that, a charge is actually being captured to the invoice in real time. This goes a long way to ensure that we are capturing all of those charges for our patients. Now, when it comes to an outpatient treatment, there's some tools that our team is working on that are coming soon that I'm really excited to give you guys a sneak peek. We're going to jump over to our beta site here to show you some of our tools around AI. And I know that's a topic that we are hearing a lot in this world today. We want to make educated decisions on how we're using it within our system. Now, right here in the patient's chart for Milo, if I was going into this visit and Milo has been seen for years with us, I want to just know what I need to know about this patient's history before going in the exam room. This companion helps me to summarize out his past information, giving me a brief summary of everything that I need to know, so that then I'm going into the exam room prepared, ready to talk to the owner about any past concerns, all with these great AI tools. Now, additionally, sometimes we move pretty quickly, including when we're writing our record, and we use some shorthand information. Now, that's great. We know what it means, but owners might not. So our AI can also help to improve the writing here. Now, what this will do is take what you've written and make it a little bit more digestible for your clients. One last piece with the new AI functionality that we're working on is our Ask Assistant. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I get an answer from AI, I question it. I wonder where that information is coming from. And the information with our AI assistant is coming from trusted sources like Plumbs and Standards of Care. What's great about this as well is that once it gives you your answer, it will actually give you the references that it used to pull out that information. So just another great tool that our team is working on for those outpatient workflows. Now, when it's time to check out, we do have an integrated payment processor called Instinct Payments that includes stored cards, tap to pay, and payment links that make checkout faster for clients and just easier for staff. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the anesthesia sheet. Now, this is one of my favorite tools within Instinct, and I'll show you guys why. If you're used to using paper anesthesia sheets, this will help you go fully paperless because it is all digital. Now, what we're seeing here is the ability to document all of the information about our procedure in the anesthesia sheet setup. We also have timers over to the right-hand side that instead of having to mark on your piece of paper what time the procedure started and then calculate out based off when it ends how long they were actually under, when you record induction here, it will start the anesthesia timer. And when you record procedure start, it will start the procedure timer, so that some of that manual labor that you guys have to do is automated. Now below that, we have our vitals that we can record. We have 15-minute table slots, and then we have our grid that will map out kind of similar to probably what you're used to using on your paper anesthesia sheets. Down towards the bottom, I can also order up any of my treatments that are going to be needed during the procedure. And I can use product groups or those pick lists like we saw on the treatment sheet to quickly put this information together. Now, these are the same anesthesia tools that are used today by leading specialty, emergency, and university teaching hospitals, just now available for general practice. This really just results in better visibility, improved accuracy, and greater peace of mind, keeping everyone aligned from induction to recovery. Another item that I want to show you guys that is brand new is our automations, or our automations. Now, the goal with automations is to automate things like client communication and other tasks to limit the manual labor that's required by your team. Now, a good example of this we have here with surgery callbacks. So you guys may have a spreadsheet right now that when a patient undergoes surgery, you write their name on the spreadsheet, you say when you want to do the callback, and your team kind of runs down the list to complete those to follow up on how they're doing past the procedure. It's a lot of manual labor, and this aims to prevent some of that. So with automations, I can set rules that when a patient is checked out, and if the service was surgery, then Instinct is going to automatically create a task for you. These tasks will include information about what we need to do, so follow up with the client, as well as who the assignee is going to be. And then the patient will automatically be assigned from the trigger. So when this patient was checked out, it will connect to the task with that patient, saving your time, saving your team time and effort along the way. So this is just one use of automations. There are so many that can be set up within the system. Now, as we're talking about client communication, Jillian mentioned how important this is in our general practice environment. And one of the tools that we can use for communicating with our clients is our in-app client chat. This does allow me to text directly with owners, and I can open this up and I can send out messages to owners. I can also send photos and videos to owners. So when they come out of surgery, you can let them know they're doing well in recovery and maybe send a little picture to go along with it. This is a part of the medical record as well. So we talked about the communication log briefly, but the communication log will also include an attachment to any of those chats that you've been having. I think one important call out here is around pricing. I know with a lot of other solutions, there may be a per text fee or you pay maybe every month or so. With Instinct, there is no additional cost to you, so you can communicate freely with your clients without worrying about running up the bill. Now, the end result here is faster communication, fewer phone calls, and a better client experience, all without adding another cost to your team. Another tool that our team is working on that I'm really excited to give you guys a sneak peek is the ever-awaited client portal. So this is a client-facing portal that allows pet owners 24/7 access to their pet's information, including medical records and direct communication with your practice. Now from here, what I can view are past medical records. So I can come in here and just quickly access those medical records if I need to. I can view all of my patients' current medications, and I can even request refills. I can also come down to my appointments and view any upcoming appointments. And yes, they can self-confirm from here as well. And then I can view information like any upcoming reminders and access things like past invoices so that when an insurance company asks for them, your team actually doesn't have to be involved, and it is really more self-service. By giving clients instant access to what they need, practices can reduce phone calls and administrative work while delivering a more modern and connected solution. Now, the last thing that I want to show you guys, there are so many tools available, but I want to focus on the ones that really hit home for general practice, and that is analytics. So Instinct offers a wide range of analytic reporting because the medical side of it is very important, but so is our reporting piece. Now, all of our analytics are role-based and permission controlled so that the right people see the right information. Now, we have our structured reporting that includes robust in-app reports that generate as Excel files. All of these reports here can be set up to run on a schedule, such as daily, weekly, or monthly. But I can also come in and I can generate these reports on demand. Additionally, all of these reports are stored forever. So this is your bank of any past reports that you can find and access at any point. These can be set up to be sent to an email at the schedule in which they're run as well. Now below that, we also have dashboards that cover key metrics like revenue, as well as practice metrics such as treatment overview or product usage, as well as referring vet relationships like top referring practices. We offer a wide range of reporting here, and I would love to show you each and every one because I think they are all unique. But in lieu of time, I'm just going to focus on this overdue vaccine and service reminder report. Now, this report is going to give me a lot of insights into how many accounts have overdue vaccine or service reminders. You can see there's a tab for overdue and upcoming. And as with any of our dashboards, we are going to have filters that you guys can use to extract the data in this report that is important to you. Now, it's great to have all these numbers and be able to visualize things with our charts and graphs, but sometimes we want to know the raw each time or each patient that has overdue vaccine and service reminders, and we can do that here in the details. Now, for teams that want to go further, Instinct does make it easy to export raw data in common formats, which gives you access to custom analysis, sharing with leadership, or using external tools. The goal here is simple: to turn practice data into insights so that teams can make smarter operational and financial decisions without extra systems or manual work for the team. And with that, I will stop the sharing. Hopefully you guys got a great sneak peek and hand it back to Jillian.
Jane, thank you so much. That was a great demo. There's just so much in Instinct EMR for primary care that we could show, and it's hard to show the depth in a 20-minute demo, but we'd be happy to show you more. Let us know if you'd like to learn more. And while you're filling that out, we will jump into some of the questions that we're getting in the chat. We got a great question from a practice owner who currently has 3 practices and is expanding to 4. First off, good for you. That is quite a feat. And this person's wondering about the operational implications of Instinct. We've seen actually more and more of our customers expand in this way. And with that, we've built a lot more tools to support this multi-location setup, because you want to be able to manage things across locations. You don't want to have to set up your client and your patient lists 4 times or your product lists 4 times. But there's, of course, things that you want to be able to customize per location. So we really try to balance that, giving you the flexibility to do things like reporting at the location level or look at the aggregate. If you're interested in seeing, trends across your products, that product list is shared so you can see what's happening across your locations or drill down. Pricing is, of course, important. You might want to set different pricing by location. That's possible too. But the real thing that we want to make sure happens is that there's continuity for the client and the patient, and that medical history is shared across locations, so you have an easy way to access it if it's the 10th time that you're seeing them or if it's their first time at a second location. You can also easily transfer visits to make that continuity really simple. Somebody had a keen eye when we were going through appointment reminders in the demo and was asking about whether you can just have those default on. And we got a couple other questions about appointment reminders, like whether you can send those via text and email and how much customization there is. So that first one, definitely, you can choose to have those you can set them and forget them and have them send every time. You can also customize what's sent. So both in terms of the cadence and how many reminders are sent until the client confirms, and also the messaging and the channels. So you can customize that text that's sent to really suit your practice's tone and make sure that it has the information that your clients need. And you can also choose when and where they're sent. So you can set those up via email, via text message, or both. We also got some questions about integrations, a few different systems that people are wondering about. And this has been a real area of focus for us over the last couple of years, making your system work with the other systems that you have in play is really important for saving time and making sure that you're running efficiently so that you don't have to do things in a duplicative way. So we have a ton of integrations. I think we added upward of 20 new integrations just this year, and that list continues to grow. We've got integrations with radiology systems like Asteris, VetRocket, IDEX Web Packs, scribing tools like ScribbleVet, CoVet, VetRec. That's obviously been a big up and coming thing in the last couple of years, as well as other client communication tools. If you have a system that you're already using like Auto or CheckVet, we integrate with those as well. We've got a whole page outlining those integrations on our website if you're curious about a specific system. And if you don't see it there, there's a good chance that we're working on it already. We got more questions about reminders and the ability to pull in dynamic information. Yes, definitely. Those reminders, when I mentioned about customizing the text, you can go in and you can pull variables into that. Variables are what we call them, those kind of snippets that allow you to input a patient's name, a client's name, the appointment date and time, the provider. Those are actually available in a number of places throughout the system, reminders being one of those. And it looks like we got one about data migration, a hot topic and one of the biggest points of anxiety that we see in that kind of decision process about whether to switch systems or what system to switch to. Data migration is obviously really important for maintaining continuity for your customers and for the care of patients. You don't want to let things like previously booked appointments or upcoming services due slip through the cracks. So it's really important to be able to maintain that information when you're making a system change, on top of all the other change that comes along with that. So definitely, this is something that we do with every implementation that we're doing with customers that aren't net new practices. And we've done it from a number of different systems. Pretty much any PIMS that you're using can be migrated from, and we can migrate a lot of the information like appointments, account information, patient information, medical history, reminders, to make sure that there's that business continuity and continuity for your patient and client experience. I'm seeing a few questions as we start to wrap up here about pricing. Something that if you raise your hand, yes, that you want to learn more, we can definitely have a conversation with you. It's going to depend on some factors about your practice, and we'd love to dig into that with you. Okay, I think we've hopefully answered most of the questions. Sorry, my pup just jumped off the screen. Hopefully that didn't make too much noise. And actually, I see one that just came in that I want to address, which is about an open API. When we talk about integrations, we have some integrations that we build ourselves, but we also offer an API. You can see the documentation at docs.instinctvet.com that has a number of ways that you can integrate with Instinct yourself if you want to build something, if you have technical resources to do something that is more custom to your practice or some of the tools that you use. So that's definitely an option. If we didn't get to your questions, we will definitely follow up with you. Thank you so much for sending those in. Really appreciate that. And thanks so much for joining us today and spending time with us. Have a great afternoon.